The only Bond when I grew up was Sean Connery, and I loved the way he talked. I loved his accent. I guess there was a little Scottish brogue behind it. And so I always wanted to talk a little bit like Connery. You know what I mean? And I was always walking around trying to do this Connery-like accent. Well, pushy. What do you say we go fly off? So it's definitely the 10th grade, for sure. For some reason, my parents entrusted me to be in the home by myself on a weekend night. I don't know where they went, but my older brothers were out of the house. It was just me alone, and I wasn't supposed to have anybody over. As soon as they left and the car was rolling down Princeton, I called up my friend Bobby and said, you got to get over here. We got the house. So he came over. I can't remember if we smoked any pot, but we got into my dad's walk-in bar. They entertained. So he had this bar with a little bar sink, all these bottles of booze, different types of booze, in case any guest would want to come over and have some cognac, or they might want a gin and tonic, or they might want a blended scotch, or they might want whatever. So our plan was to turn my dad's stereo on as loud as humanly possible and test it by putting our hand on the window pane to make sure they were actually rattling. And we started working our way across the bottles in the bar. So we went from gin to Scotch whiskey to Canadian whiskey to creme de menthe to Grand Marnier to whatever. We were working our way across. We got pretty dang drunk, and the volume on Dad's stereo just kept going up. Bobby was sprawled out on a chair in the living room. We had all the lights off in the living room. Only the street lights from outside were coming through the big picture window. I had this inspiration to go upstairs, and I put on my 3-piece corduroy suit and bow tie and my platform leather shoes like you would wear back in the 70s. My church outfit. No, I didn't dress that nice for church, but it was my formals, I guess. I thought I would go downstairs and imitate James Bond. To complete the getup, I went to Dad's gun case and extracted the Python. Fashioned some way of putting it underneath my coat, whether in a holster or whatever I did. He didn't have a shoulder holster, like a, cop or something. Went downstairs. Bobby sprawled out in the chair. I walked down. I turned the stereo down. Bobby looks up at me and starts laughing because I'm wearing this ridiculous outfit. And I said, the name's Bond. James Bond, 007. And then I extracted the Python. And Bobby goes, whoa. He stops laughing then. And then I opened it up, showed him it was loaded. And in each pocket, I had what's called a speed loader, which were 6 rounds of .357 Magnum bullets that when you run out of bullets in a revolver, you knock them out, you put the speed loader in, you lock it, drops the cartridges in, and you're ready to start firing. So he wanted to have a gun too, and so we went upstairs and got him a .22 pistol, and I made sure there wasn't one in the chamber, as they say. It was a semi-automatic pistol. He shoved it because he had it shoved down his pants. I didn't want him to blow his cock off. What the hell? We grabbed Dad's .22 rifle that he bought when he was 14 for $12, or when he was 12 for $14. And we walked downstairs and kind of looked at ourselves and how cool we looked. And then I said, let's go for a walk around the neighborhood. And then I said, let's drop down from Princeton down to the railroad tracks. There were railroad tracks at the very bottom of Princeton. There was a bridge that went across them. I had at least the forethought to put what are called .22 long caps in it. These are bullets that are subsonic. The idea being that the rifle's not going to make that much noise when we shoot it off in the railroad tracks area. So we, and when you this thing kind of like goes, you know, usually with a 22, and this thing would be more like, it was like pretty, but you know, it's not going to make a racket. It's not going to be as easily identifiable as a gun going off. We were not going to shoot either of the handguns off. It's amazing how there's this higher functioning part of the drunken mind going like, well, go down there and shoot some guns, but we're not going to like make a ruckus. They do make noise, but they don't make that much noise when you shoot it. I thought, well, we'll shoot a few rounds, then we'll head back up. We'll have had our, whatever, James Bond experience. So we headed down the street, amazing, like with a rifle. The rifle was kind of between us. We were sort of shoulder to shoulder, so we were hiding the rifle. We were also going a little off on some side streets, and we got down to the bridge that goes across the railroad tracks. Just as we got to the one end of the bridge, the first end of the bridge, a car came down the street, its headlights hit us, and we hid down behind the cement railing and behind some bushes. It slowed down like it was really inspecting us, and then it suddenly sped up, went across the bridge. There's an arterial where you either have to take a left or a right, sped off down the arterial. We didn't think anything of it. We just thought it was probably some teenage kids messing with us. They probably didn't see the guns. So we continued to go across the bridge, walk across the bridge. This would allow us access down to the tracks where we were going to shoot the rifle off. We just about got to the end of the bridge and a white car pulled up. And all of a sudden this girl's voice, and she goes, Kurt Lance? And I looked at her and I went, well, the name's Bond, James Bond, 007. And they said, is that a rifle? And I said, well, naturally, it's a sharpshooter. And they said, why don't we meet you across the street? So this is across the arterial. There's a grocery store, closed, because grocery stores closed back then at 6 o'clock at night. We walked across the street. We're chatting with the girls. It was pretty much right when they said, is that a rifle? I started kind of waking up. I started coming out of this. I started sobering up is what it boils down to. And as we're talking to him, within a couple of minutes, a police car pulls up across the street. Very quickly, another police car pulls up. A third police car comes over the bridge that we just walked across minutes before, turns and faces the other police car, first one. But this one has a K9 decal on behind the passenger door, backseat passenger door. We knew what that was about. We knew that that car that had slowed down had reported us. Bobby started to panic. We all started to panic, but Bobby panicked and he said, like, let's hide the guns over here by these plastic containers like you would get milk in, or milk would arrive to the grocery store in, or vegetables. And we were starting to do this, and I thought, we're going to be fucked. We can't leave them here. This, you know, people are making deliveries to stores at 5 o'clock in the morning. We're not going to get up in time. We're going to leave them. We're going to lose this stuff. My dad's going to kill me. It's much better to just take them with us. So we got into the back seat of the car. One girl in the front, one girl in the back, the driver, another girl. We laid the .22 rifle down. We threw some sweaters on it. And they gently pulled out. I mean, their headlights hit the cop cars across the street, I'm assuming. And then we turned and went down this arterial boulevard. We drove, and then we came up the back way, our home on Princeton. They dropped us off. We thanked them. We are wide awake, ultra sober at this point. Bobby and I go inside the house. We start unloading the arms. I'm wiping the guns down because my dad was super fastidious about this stuff. And then we hear a sound, and it's the Seattle Police helicopter We go into my parents' bedroom. We don't turn any of the lights on. And we watched that police helicopter go up and down those railroad tracks with its searchlight on several times. And because we were so high up on the hill, our house was so high up on the hill, we were at the same elevation as the helicopter off in the distance. Whoa. That was, so that was a Saturday night. Mom and Dad came back on Sunday. I was plenty hungover. I called up Bobby and I said, we got to do something for those girls saved our lives. I mean, if they hadn't come by, we probably would have dropped down to the tracks. We would have fired off, maybe successfully fired off a round or two before the cops showed up. And then who knows what would have happened. I know we wouldn't have gotten into a gunfight with them or anything like that, but God, we'd have been so, oh my God, we had been so busted. It was hard to say what's worse, that or who knows, maybe they would have shot us, I don't know. Bobby and I got together, we went up to a now defunct store called Pay and Save, and we looked for some gifts to give the girls on Monday. We found some toy guns and we gave them to them on Monday for ostensibly saving our life.